Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the webinar hosted by Cork and UKON. I'll be your host today, Andrew Mora. I'm joined here by Andy Runyan. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We'll go through some intros, talk a little bit of history about warranty, a little history about insurance, all the fun stuff that all you all like to talk about. And then I'll kick it over to Andy to give a little bit of insight. On what we're doing here and how our messaging has changed over the last couple of years, um, and kind of where we're going, right? What we're doing and how we plan to help the community and uplift all the partners that are on this call to better understand and navigate the insurance realm. So buckle up. We got a pretty insightful one for you. It should be pretty fun. Please, if you have any questions, fire them off in the chat. We do have a couple people that are monitoring that. I'll also be checking that out as well. But we do want to keep this interactive and not do a death by slide for y'all. So without further ado, my name's Andrew Mora. Everyone knows me more by my last name. So for those of you that don't know me, please feel free to call me Mora. It's a little easier to find me, especially because there are a lot of Andrews in the channel. I've actually been in the channel for 12 years working with partners, been on the vendor side for quite a bit, spent quite a bit of time at Pax8 on the distribution side. So probably have run into to you or sold you Microsoft or backup sometime in the last 12 years. So good to see everybody. Now I'm here over at Cork running the go-to-market as the CRO. Couldn't be happier. I think we deliver a pretty cool product. And we deliver some really insightful things within the insurance realm as well. And so, again, that's why we're here with Andy. And I do want to kick it over to him for an introduction, and then I'll take it back for a second for a little bit of history on the warranty space and what we're doing. But Andy, please.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you. Another Andrew in the channel, right? I just go by Andy, but no, I'm Andy Runyan. I'm our director of strategic alliances over here at UKON. If you're unfamiliar with UKON, you might be familiar with Fifth Wall Solutions. Fifth Wall became UKON this summer, just went through a rebrand, but same team, same mission. Essentially, we are a cyber insurance and tech errors and emissions marketplace with multiple markets for insurance options for both MSPs and their customers. And personally, I have been working in cyber insurance since 2019, so heading into my 7th year. And I just feel like, I mean, we're going to go through the history of this thing today. Just the good Lord's timing of where I was placed in this thing. I got in at the exact right time. Cyber insurance was not widely adopted prior to the pandemic. It needed to go through a lot of changes. It has gone through a lot of changes, and we've come out the other side. If we had this, I don't know that we would have had this webinar 7 years ago, right? Cyber insurance was in a place where it was kind of at odds with warranties. Honestly, it was kind of at odds with MSPs at the time. There was a lot of finger pointing. And the market as a whole needed to go through a lot of maturation. And I feel like it has to date. So we'll go through some of that history. We'll talk about some of the changes, and excited to look at MSP specific liability and how MSPs that maybe have danced around the insurance conversation previously can dive in with both feet now confidently, take the reins and drive some revenue and really add some stickiness and some client success through that conversation. So appreciate you having us on today.
Well, a fun fact about Andy is that he's actually an avid coach for his son's baseball team. So, Andy, in full spirit to that, a
Yeah.
curveball was thrown in for you. The question when you were describing UConn slash Fifth Wall was, are you guys owned by ConnectWise?
No, no, we are not.
Cool. Well, so yeah, as Andy kind of alluded to it, if you're an old Cork partner or a legacy Cork partner, been around for 2+ years, the messaging was a little bit different, right? It was we could, as a warranty, replace insurance. Um, we had a lot of friction, in all honesty, especially with the Yukon Fifth Wall people back in that time. Uh, what we started to realize as the maturity of not only insurance but as warranty and Cork as a whole started to happen is working together, and what we were actually delivering was a better story and a better option for the partners and their actual end users. just because of how the warranty works incongruent and supplemental with insurance. And
Right.
so once we started working with the Yukon team and just honestly started asking them questions, what's the things that you all are looking for as brokers? What are the kind of questions? What are the technologies? And we started to figure out that we were essentially looking at the same things and trying to get to the same goal, which was to cover the end users and drop their risk profile as much as possible. And so that's why we're here today is we've been working on the back end with UKON over this year within 2025 to figure out a better together story and a message and what we've been doing. And over the last couple of weeks, we've Andy and I both believe we've come to that resolution. Um, to where it does have a really good delivery for not only the partners, but then their end users in the long run. So I think Andy's going to run you through some of not only the history of just like insurance and how it's changed, because I think anybody on this call can attest to from 2020 to 2025, those questionnaires have greatly changed just even from the detail that they ask, right? So you can understand that the maturity of just the insurance has changed. So I'll pass it over to him so then he can kind of dive into that and throw it back to and ping pong back and forth about how this is molded and now it's gone to again to this better together story. So, Andy, please, and please, we love the questions. As you know, they don't have to be work related either. Any trivia? Andy's probably good at baseball too, so baseball trivia. But
Well, I'll tell you, somewhere in my CV in my resume, I taught advanced placement art history to high school kids and had literally the smartest kids in the school. Some that were a lot smarter than I was. So, if anybody has a question or wants to interrupt, and, put in the chat, whatever. The same thing I used to tell my students, be like, if there's something that's mission critical to what we're talking about, please interject. Happy to stop. And Andrew, feel free to interrupt me anytime if I'm going. I don't take offense to that stuff. So real quick, I want to go through kind of where we were pre-COVID versus where we are now, what's changed. And I know to a degree I'm going to be preaching to the choir here. I know a lot of you have experienced this, you know it, but I want to tie it into how that relates to our relationship with Cork. What does that mean for warranties? What does it mean for insurance? Why are these guys working together? Hopefully this will shed some, right? Prior to COVID, there was very, very little underwriting. What I mean by that is insurance companies were not asking if you had applied for cyber insurance prior to COVID. They weren't asking questions about MFA or MDR or backups or anything like that. The questions were literally, quite literally, I've got an old app from 2019 that I keep on my desk in case anybody calls me on it. I'll just show them the app. Name, address, revenue, what do you do, and have you had a loss in the last couple of years? You're not in the marijuana or adult film or casinos like any weird, and if you're not doing any of that stuff, you're good. Here's your quote if you want it, right? There's very little focus on controls. Premiums are very low, and pretty much everybody can get a policy, right? Well, COVID hit, and when we speak on COVID, we don't really get into a political or like a medical discussion. It's more of a marker in time for cybersecurity. Everybody knows that COVID forced remote work. Cybercrime shifted down to Main Street, right? We saw a ton of claims, and the carriers on the insurance side, the loss ratios were horrible. And not to get into insurance nerd weeds, but your loss ratio is how much premium you take in versus how many claims you pay out. Ideally, for an insurance company to be profitable, that number needs to be in 40 to 60, and that number exceeded 110%. There were some that were at 120% for a year. So we started seeing carriers go, uh-oh, that's not good. We have to start asking better questions about controls. What about MFA? What about backups, right? And some of those basic controls peaked in 2021 and beyond. Post-COVID, we had a very, very hard market. And what we mean by that on the insurance side is, we had some claims being denied. We had carriers not wanting to take on risk. There was less appetite. There were higher premiums. There were certain exclusions that started coming out. And honestly, Andrew alluded to this. I think it's really good for us to kind of, stab the elephant in the room in the gut. There became a very negative connotation during COVID and post-COVID of cyber insurance. It's like, oh, my client had this claim and it was denied because they didn't have MFA on. They had this claim for dependent business interruption and it wasn't covered. It wasn't even listed, right? And then on top of that, MSPs started getting these long form apps that asked a million questions on the front end, and cyber insurance became this very, very cumbersome. Warranties creeped in, and warranties said, hey, cyber insurance is denying claims and not paying out and things like that. And to a degree, there was some truth to that, right? The MSP was getting drug into the conversation, and they were getting loaded down with apps and questions and things like that. It was a very, very volatile time for the industry, and we've corrected. The industry has figured out, how to develop a solid form, how to underwrite better, how to pay out claims. CFC is one of our primary carriers. We're a wholesaler, and we deal with over 50 carriers. CFC released information at the end of 2024 that they paid out like 99.2% claims. Right, so that's what we want to see. We want folks to be able to
Andy,
get
I just want to jump
insurance,
in
and we
right
want
there.
insurance to do insurance. Yeah, go ahead.
So the big one that I like to explain to our partners, because again, Cork, we have a tie to insurance, but we don't really sell insurance. But we get asked all the time, who does UKON really use? And the reality for them is as Andy said, they use 50 different carriers. So when your end user uses the coalitions, the big names that you typically see,
Right.
UKON uses those insurers as well, right? And so
Right.
to have those, you don't have to worry about them switching. Typically, like they can usually keep it under the same carrier, which is important for basically for the partners to feel that warm and fuzzy blanket, right? They already have this, they already went with that, they already are comfortable with it, so they don't typically have to change. But what I would say is obviously UKON, the differentiator is that they are focused on cyber, right? And I always ask our partners when we're going through our side of it is with your normal broker that's down the street, do they help you on the actual MSP side? And typically the answer is no. And so that's where, I would really just make sure our partners really understand like the value and the differentiation of where UKON stands from like a traditional broker. Because their focus is I mean, Andy could probably sell you some home and auto too, but maybe some life. But
I'm licensed to, but I have zero desire to. No, but that's a great point. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because this is kind of one of those like cataract moments of understanding of how we work moving forward. This is one of those divides that people really need to understand. We are not in competition with your local broker, right? We are a wholesaler in the insurance marketplace. This is a very, very common misconception for us, right? And I want on this webinar today, I want us to break down some walls, right? Because here are probably the two most common misconceptions, right? If my customer has a claim, man, they're going to have to wait forever to get paid out, or they're not going to get paid out, right? And if you guys come in, you're in competition with their local broker or their local agent that they love. Neither of those need to be true. First of all, as a wholesaler, we work with local agents. We partner with them. It is very common for an MSP to partner with a local insurance agent and pass referrals back and forth. It's a very healthy referral source, right? To Andrew's point, the problem is usually that local guy in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska doesn't specialize in cyber, doesn't have the first clue about how to talk cyber. We can come alongside that local agent as their preferred wholesaler, as a specialist in cyber, give them access to those 50 markets, right? They will be able to place insurance for the customer through us, and then they have a specialist in tow that can help educate them, the MSP, the customer, all of those things. And then with Cork being involved, if that customer has a warranty, the warranty does things, and this is where I'm going to kind of pass it back to you, Andrew, and let you, kind of talk about how the two products fit together. Insurance is meant to indemnify over a period of time. If a business goes down for 15, 30, 60 days, insurance is supposed to sit there and let that event play out, right? And then indemnify at the end of the event for things like business interruption, reputational harm, right? Ransom payment. It does not say, here's money right now, right? When an event happens. Now, If it's a pay on behalf form, if it's the right form. But there is not money up front, right? There's not cash on hand, anything like that. And that's really where that Better Together story starts, because a warranty can do those things and it can complement insurance in that claims process. So that's where you guys come in.
Yeah, I think partners, when they initially come into Cork, they have an idea of how it would work, especially from the warranty perspective. And when I really simplify it, the way I think of it is in two simple fashions. One is just what Andy alluded to, is how much liquid cash does your actual end user have on hand to run in case of an event happens? We help subsidize that on the front end. So RTO, RPO from a cash perspective. Um, the other is I think about it, and this is what's been helping our partners get out of the data room and more into the boardroom and more into the CFO, CEO conversations, is essentially the out-of-pocket expense cost.
Right.
Because, and that's where the Better Together story came in, is we started to figure out, well, shoot, you can up the deductible, and Andy, as the actual broker, can feel comfortable with upping that deductible because there's actually a financial backing behind it. And so there's cause and correlation that actually happens. And so I think that's where it's really, really important. And when I put on my consumer hat, it changes the conversation as opposed to my end user cost going up. But now my out-of-pocket expense is going down. And so now it's a real, is the juice worth the squeeze type of conversation, and does the mathematical equation actually decrease my actual cost? And what we come to find out, and Andy, you can attest to this too, is in most cases we can't, right? For things that they're already buying, whether it's insurance, whether it's
Right.
the actual products that they're consuming through the MSP to buy more. There's a bunch of different ways that we can actually, for lack of a better term, lessen their expenditures and their expenses with what they're already consuming to
Right.
even maybe give them better coverage.
Yes. And I'll tell you, you mentioned, you hit on something there that I want to kind of dive into a little bit, and it's that loss quantification piece, right? Having that conversation with the CFO, with the board. If I go down, and I go down for the average amount of time, which we know to be 15 days from sources like CISA and multiple studies, it's running about 2 weeks, right? And has for a couple of years. Outside, unless they have MDR, right? We know that folks that have MDR tend to get back up and running quicker. Um, what does that look like from a financial standpoint for my business, right? Not the national average, but like, I'm a $150 million manufacturer. I have severe risk of business interruption loss, right? If I'm down for 15 days, what does that look like, and how much money do I need to, we talk about mitigating risk through cybersecurity controls and then transferring it through insurance. And now it becomes a consultative conversation of how much risk do I need to transfer through insurance, right? So often nationwide, and there are really, really good reports. Sophos has a phenomenal report out about loss quantification and risk transference. And what that report essentially said is, businesses go out and they get $1 million in general liability, and they have $1 million of work comp and $1 million of business auto, so they get $1 million of cyber. But the problem is their average cyber risk is like 4 million based on their revenue and what they do, and they don't know that. So out of ignorance, and this is an old Randy Black, Cabot Junior High. This is going back to the coaching. One of my old defensive coordinators used to say, ignorance doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means you don't know, right? Out of ignorance, they place $1 million in insurance for cyber when they really need 4 or 5, right? So that loss quantification piece, getting in and saying, hey, based on what we've seen come through the door, based on your revenue, based on how you operate, based on what we believe notification costs to be in your sector, we can get you pretty close to what we think an average claim might look like. Now, based on how you've mitigated your risk with controls, do you have MDR? Do you feel like you could get back up and running in 2-3 days? Well, maybe you don't need to buy 5. Maybe you need to buy 2, right? And on top of that, to your point, if you have a warranty on deck, maybe now I can buy that too with a $50,000 or $100,000 deductible, because I will have some cash. right? And that becomes a much, much more efficient financial discussion, right? Where we're bringing in insurance, warranty, controls, loss quantification, risk modeling. We worked with a partner the other day, and they needed a 10-year premium escalation chart where we kind of went in and said, based on what you're paying now, here's what the market looks like, and here's where we think it might go over the next 10 years. And those are much, much deeper and detailed conversations than your average. And no offense to the average Joe Blow agent. I've been that guy in my career, right? But I wouldn't have been able to have that conversation in 2019, right? You have to specialize.
So I'm gonna throw this out there for the partners that are emailing and still working while they're on this webinar. But essentially think about that. Andy's talking about UKON will take less of a commission to actually provide better coverage for your customers, right? And that's what really won me over. So, and the question that came in from Davis is, what do you mean by warranty? So when you were explaining your example.
Yes, yes. So the warranty is the Cork product, right? And listen, let's call a spade a spade. There are other warranties out there, right? There are other warranty products that are offered. Warranty is not insurance, and insurance is not warranty, right? They work together. And by warranty, you're looking at if a loss occurs, if a product fails, a warranty will give you X amount of cash on hand right then. Versus insurance, if that product fails or a loss occurs, will hang out and be multi-layered for the length of the event. I think of an example. We had a school district in Arkansas that it took them 9 months to be back to 90% functionality, right? Um, you need an insurance product sitting there walking you, holding your hand through those 9 months, right? That school also, if they had computers bricked or they needed to pay their techs for overtime hours, they also need cash on hand, right? So a warranty functions in a different way from insurance. They are two separate products that you purchase separately.
So Davis, in that same scenario that Andy's talking about with the school, essentially we would have worked with the insurer that the school had. We would have figured out what they were paying and then where we could supplement. But the warranty that Cork would actually provide for that school would have been paid out no later than 30 days. So as opposed to that 9 months, we would have determined up to 500,000 or $100,000 in payment would have been able to been executed to that school within 30 days or less. So that's where the better together story comes in, because essentially like what you find out is that a lot of end users, a lot of your customers don't have a lot of cash for runway if an event does happen. Because like the way I kind of look at insurance, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong for using this verbiage, but it's more of when an incident happens and you're waiting for that time, you're essentially spending cash and you're waiting for reimbursement from insurance.
That's right.
And so,
There's two different types of forms, and I just so everybody knows, and this is kind of in the weeds. So there's a pay on behalf form, right? And there's a reimbursement form. Pay on behalf will pay for you for certain things, like a ransom payment, right? Now, you can't pay on behalf for like business income loss, right? Like you have to wait for the downtime to finish, right? And like I've got to be, if like let's think back to CDK Global that happened for car dealers, right? CDK Global customers were down for some of them were sending folks home for 10, 11, 12 work days, couldn't sell a car. We've got to let that play out, and then we've got to attach a business income number, and then insurance comes in, right? So there are certain things that insurance can pay on behalf for. It depends on how the form's written. There are certain things that they have to wait on, but the vast majority of stuff is let's wait until we know the full details and scope of the event, and then we will reimburse, which is where the warranty help
does
and on the front.
does forensics come into play at all from the time frame on the insurance side?
Yes, absolutely. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing more and more carriers that will come in and tell you ahead of time who your forensics team will be, who your legal team will be. We are very proactive when we place insurance with our customers to say, hey, let's create a plan. Like you've got a policy. Now let's not just, throw it in a folder, on on the server and forget it. Number one, get it off the server, right? Number two, call that carrier and ask them, how do you guys handle forensics? How do you handle legal? Where's the line for my MSP? How can they help? Where do they? I mean, essentially, we have a crime scene, right? And the customer nor the MSP need to run in there, cleaning up blood until the cops have shown up and got a good idea of what's happened, right? So yes, forensics, legal, all of that is included. And as a marketplace that deals with 40 or 50 different carriers that can all do it differently, right? We can't kind of speak in large, solids around how it's going to go. We tell our customers, talk to your carrier, figure out what's going on, and again, having some cash on hand. I mean, man, even if it's maybe you got thinking back to that school, our school, my son's school got hit. I know guys that were working 16, 18-hour days, even if it's just buying those guys dinner in one night. It's helpful to have cash.
Which we've done before. Dan, our CEO, talks about how he's bought one of our partners the pizza because they were working over the weekend, right? So,
Yeah.
Davis, does that answer your question? I know it was a little long-winded for both of us. We can definitely chat. So, perfect.
Apologies there. You got a southerner on, so long-winded just comes with the terms here.
No, so yeah, and I mean the other piece that where we started to figure out, sorry, it's trash day for me, but we started to figure out where Cork can really start to help UKON understand the consumption of products. So like as Andy was talking about, like, do you have backup? Do you have MDR, right? Those types of things, EDR. Essentially, when I'm sure every partner who's on here, it looks like we have, 40 participants on here. I'm sure all of you have seen or heard of a cyber questionnaire, and having to help your customers go through the technology questions. Essentially, since we tie into those tools and we can monitor those tools from a cyber insurance perspective, I usually tell our customers, again, from a very baseline perspective, what we deliver is a 24 by 7 attestation that all those products that they attested to are still correct. And so
Yes.
that's where, again, another piece of the Better Together story comes in for us is we're trying to figure out how to make your lives easier as MSPs and create the easy button from an insurance perspective. Even though Cork, again, has no, we're kind of like MSPs in the middle. We don't really tie to insurance. We have a tie to it, but we have no bearing. We don't make any money off of it. We're not brokers. And so that's why we team up with the UKONs of the world again, because we also believe here at Cork that the MSPs will always be a vessel to end user to
Yep.
insurance. It will always be a
Yep.
thing just
And
because you all manage the technology.
Andrew, we got a question in the chat. I want to address that question, but I don't want to forget this. We need to pivot from that right into the because you hit on it. The shared liability, what does it mean for us to have licensed agent within this relationship, like between you guys and the MSP, all of that. But let's get to Jason's question.
Yeah, Jason, great question. We do. Let me get the link for you. I'm actually pulling it up right now. So we have a tool, it's an AI tool. It's called the Policy Analyzer or Cyber Insurance Analyzer. We call it CIA internally. But it's literally a drag and drop. You throw your PDF in there, it spits out a two-pager. It gives you an executive summary, a coverage summary. Up there it goes. Eric, one of my teammates, just popped it in there for you. So again, you'll pop it in there. It's a drag and drop. Caveat is you have to have a PDF. What it'll come out and it'll look exactly the same every time. It'll give you the coverage summary, executive summary, and then the very bottom, the risk factors, and then the sublimits. So what I usually advise partners on is when you're obviously, again, you all are not brokers either, or most MSPs are not. So this is where you just hand it to your customer and say, hey, bring this to your broker. Here's some of the risk factors you may want to address. But then at the very bottom, it also say if or where a warranty could actually supplement that policy as well.
And guys, I'm really glad this is a perfect transition in what we should talk about next. Number one, and Andrews makes a great point here. your customers can upload their policy. The MSP can also upload their what should be tech errors and omissions and cyber insurance policies. So let's talk about that real quick. At the customer level for MSPs, those customers are coming to MSPs going, hey, my local agent doesn't really understand cyber. I've got this policy. A lot of MSPs are starting to require that their customers have cyber insurance on their MSA. So there's this exchange of the policy. Well, the MSP is not licensed. Honestly, from a liability standpoint, and we'll hit on this in a second, the MSP shouldn't be giving opinions on this is how much limit you should buy. This is what your coverage says. You're not a licensed agent, and there's liability there, right? So the customer can upload their policy into, or they can send it to you. You can put it into the CIA. You'll get the AI readout. And then where UKON comes in is we can introduce a licensed agent into that conversation. We can work with their agent. We can work solo and bring an agent in later. There are a lot of different ways to quote unquote skin the cat, right? But we introduce that licensed agent where we can say what everybody knows. I mean, if you've got let's say you got $1 million manufacturer, that MSP that sends you a BOP add-on $500,000 cyber insurance policy that has no cybercrime or business interruption coverage. Like, you know that's a bad deal, right? Like you probably know enough about cyber insurance to go, this is horrible. You guys need to go fix this. But you need to bring in a licensed agent to make that diagnosis, right? So that's where we can help there. And then what we work with all of our MSP partners that are willing, we've got this MSP risk management spectrum, which is just an educational piece for us. So many guys, and this is not, I'm not laying this at the feet of any individual MSP, but so many MSPs come to us and have no idea what their risk is, how their liability ties to their customer, right? What should their insurance posture be? If you're on the call today and you're an MSP, you should have a comprehensive tech errors and omissions, cyber insurance, and media liability, all three in one policy. If you just have E&O, but you don't have cyber, that's a gap. If you just have cyber, but you don't have E&O, that's a gap, right? And for all of our MSP partners, we spend time with them on the front end talking through what about Mastigliani versus Lantec, right? That there's a case out in California right now that's in month 19 of litigation where a customer had a breach. They had refused MFA and a bunch of basic controls, had a breach, right? Acronis was on the backups. They got tapped into, no access there. And the customer sued the MSP and Acronis, right? And we're in month 19 of litigation on that. We don't have a ruling. So how as an MSP do I prevent that from happening? Well, purchasing your own insurance, making sure we have annual documentation through an MSA, or through declination of service forms, making sure we're offering a full stack. And if the customers don't take that stack, that there's some type of documentation that's tied to that. And then making sure those customers have their own insurance, right? You don't want to walk yourself into a powder keg like in that scenario where the customer didn't have proper insurance. They had a loss. They weren't made whole. There wasn't an MSA in place. MFA basic controls weren't there. Now we have this powder keg scenario where off we go to court, fingers start pointing, and we're over a year into legal fees, right? So part of what we do within this relationship is bring that licensure into the conversation, not just for the customer, right, but also for the MSP and their liability. I would say roughly half of the MSPs that we consult come to us kind of hat in hand going, man, we really don't know what we have from an insurance standpoint. Help us out. We need one.
So we're coming up to the end. We have about 11 minutes left. I'm going to give the last 10 minutes for a Q&A. But I do have a question for you, Andy.
Mhm.
Is it true or false that if a partner does have a customer do a quote through UKON and their risk profile is so that
Mhm.
you will give recommendations back to, not only will you quote them based on their so risk profile, but you also give them recommendations back on the MSP's behalf to lessen that risk profile to actually get a better premium. Is that true or false from the UKON
That
perspective?
is 100% true. And we're going to get, this is back into the juxtaposition of a cyber specific agent versus a generalist, right? Number one, that generalist probably doesn't know how to make that recommendation because my guess is they don't know what MDR is, right? So just having the professional chops to know what recommendations to make to lower premium, right? But let's call a spade a spade. Is that average generalist agent that is paid on commission, right? And their livelihood is based on your premium staying high. Ethically, are they willing to make that recommendation to cut your premium by 40%? Right. So there's a duality in that, right? But yes, 100%. Our entire business model from the foundation, I really can't say from the foundation. Ever since it started mattering to MSPs, right? When we went through that history, when COVID started in the long form, we have had a dedicated MSP team here at UKON, which was formerly Fifth Wall, that their whole value proposition was we will educate your customers on how to get cyber, how to get it as cheap and as comprehensive as possible. And if they're missing controls, we'll tell them to go back and buy those controls.
So I think that's really cool for all the partners that are on here, right? Essentially, I know that there are probably people on here that have give recommendations to their customers, and for whatever reason, they haven't taken those recommendations. Now, again, you have a cause and correlation of that recommendation because now it can drive their premium down, something that they're already going to pay for as a business. So now it's, hey, is this extra $3 per seat per whatever this product is, does that outweigh my actual premium going down? It could. And again, most of the times it will. And this is something that Cork and UKON can help walk you through these pieces so that you can understand and talk to your customers within your QBRs, your MBRs, or anything like that. So again, I do want to give everyone some time for questions. So let's open it up to the floor. Is that all right with you, Andy?
100%. Yes. Would love to hear from the crowd.
Cool. Yeah. So any questions, we want to toss it back to the audience. If we don't have any other questions, we can give everyone a couple. Oh, here we go. So it's Ribo level 1 in Canada plus. Can you see the chat? It's the C.
I can. And unfortunately for us, we are currently licensed in all 50 states. Canada will be our more than likely next market. I think the earliest that would be 2026. So we're fenced. And a lot of that, guys, has to do with just insurance regulation, right? It's not that we couldn't advise well, right? It's that legally, with us not being licensed in Canada, we can't advise MSPs or their customers. How does the MSP get paid? This is a great question. I'm going to answer it from my side, and then Andrew, I'll let you answer it from your side. Insurance is a highly regulated product, right? Unless the MSP has a licensed agent on staff, UKON cannot legally share commission with that MSP, right? So where our nature or where the revenue comes from on the MSP in our symbiotic relationship is our underwriting and the advice from our staff drives MRR for the MSP. So where they get paid or where they realize value from the relationship is customer thinks that you recommending them MDR is just you trying to sell them something else. And then they go through insurance underwriting and we go, hey, if you put on MDR, we could lower your premium from 20 grand to, 12 grand. And on top of that, guys, you're probably going to be back up if we look at averages. And they go, oh, well, he wasn't just trying to sell me something. This is actually important to insurance too. Maybe I should go buy it, right? So that's the kind of symbiotic there. But on our end, we cannot pay commissions to non-licensed agents, and that's just insurance legality issue.
And that's where, so I look at it from two aspects. If you weren't using Cork, essentially you have the managed services side, that upsell perspective for anybody that if you don't, if you're the MSP that offers an all you can eat, take it or leave it type of service, then essentially then this isn't really an advantage. If you have any customers that are a la carte that do have any ability to lessen their risk profile or quote unquote harden their security or purchase more stuff, this is a great way to solidify your recommendations that you've been giving to those customers. The other way is the warranty, right? And again, this is where not even from a technology perspective, it's more of how much out-of-pocket expense are you really going to have? And so like when you start to look at it, is the IR cost in there, or is that going to be an out-of-pocket expense? Is ACH wire transfer in there? Is that an out-of-pocket expense? What is the deductible? Because that's going to be an out-of-pocket expense. And so when you overall lay that out, what is that cost to the monthly rate of a warranty? Again, typically we outweigh that. And so that's where the MSP can come in and also make margin off of that from having the financial protection of the warranty perspective on that
Perfect.
end.
And it speaks back to the two products being very different as far as rules, regulation, legality, and things like that. But no, that's a really great question, Jay, and I appreciate the ability to introduce some clarity there. Way to ask, how can we include you in your information when we do cybersecurity seminars? Guys, if you're doing things in person, we have got, I know UKON has a ton of, through our risk and reward website, we've got a trail gear portion of that. We've got one pagers, we've got case studies, we've got, YouTube videos, all of those things. You can access those resources through partnership that you can then, print off and hand to people, or you can put links so they can go watch the videos. If you're hosting digital content like this, our partners are always welcome to request, right? That we participate from an education standpoint, and we just handle it on a case by case basis, based on timing, staff availability, and what the event is, how many people will reach. I would say that we say yes more than we say no. I would guess that to date we've probably done somewhere between 50 and 60 webinars for partners. This year we do between 5 to 10. Jason asked, how does UKON compare to TechRug? So very similarly, in that UKON is a cyber insurance and E&O wholesale broker, right? Where we are different, very different, is our market access. We have access to further markets, and UKON doesn't tie your insurance to your customer's insurance. What I mean by that, this gets into the weeds a little bit, but it was asked. If a MSP goes through TechRug and then they use TechRug for their customers, right? If that MSP moves we've had multiple MSPs say, hey, we tried to move to our local agent, or we want to use you guys, and the TechRug folks have told us that that would cancel their customers' insurance through them as well, right? It's kind of a back end, but we don't operate that way. We understand insurance is relational. We've got MSP partners that have sent us dozens and dozens of customers, right? And their insurance is through their brother-in-law, right? Like we get it, right? So that's a major difference, is how we handle your relationship with your customers. You're not tethered to them in our eyes. And then number two, we work with local agents, right? We want to work with, not against, local agents. Number three is our technology. UKON has a tool that's available for free. You can download it through the Pax8 marketplace. And that tool gives the MSP and the customer the ability to get customized PDFs with loss estimation, price benchmarking, all of those things that will guide that end customer to better decision making around insurance. And we are proud to say that we are the first to market there. No wholesale broker has a tool like UKON does that's able to generate those reports.
All right, Andy, we got one more and then we'll close it out. This one came through a back channel from Daniel. How sensitive are insurance policies when it comes to MFA compliance? How quickly do MSPs and clients have to respond to users who don't have a MFA in use? And if a handful of users aren't enabled with MFA, does that really invalidate policies?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We could probably spend another 15 minutes on that. The high level is the background of underwriting is very imperfect. It's a PDF form. Do you have MFA? Yes or no? Guys, if you're in a scenario where your customers are being asked the MFA question in a binary yes or no manner, do you have it? Yes or no? and there's no nuance about where the MFA is located, right? Is it on backups? Is it on logins? Is it on email? That's a slippery slope. Claims have been denied historically. They are not being denied nearly as much today as they have in the past. But that binary yes, no does leave some gray area, right? That in part is why we have partnered with Cork, right? If you come through this scenario, there's that active monitoring to say not only is MFA turned on, but where is it, right? Not only is it, do you have an EDR? Where is the EDR? Is it fully deployed on all endpoints, right? That helps us give a better picture to the underwriter of what's going on, which helps with rates, it helps with assessments, it helps with claims, all of those things, right? But I will tell you that if a insured patently and fully lies or misattest on an app, yes, they run a risk of that claim being if it's a, hey, yes, we have it and it was on 90% of accounts, but we just added this user and they hadn't turned it on yet, you're more than likely you're going to be paid out and probably drop, right? We are not seeing like this rash of claims denied based on attestation. Like I said a minute ago, CFC paid out over 99% of their claims in 2024. Does it happen? Yes. Do your clients need to be truthful on their apps? 100%. Are they better off using UKON and Cork and live active monitoring? Absolutely. Can they have a claim denied because they missed a test on an app? Sure they can.
All right, we got
Sorry,
one
that's
more,
about as
Andy, and then
quickly as I can cover that one.
we
There's a
got
lot of
one
nuance
last
there.
one. So this
Yeah,
one's from Arvind. From what I heard so far, solution is not available in Canada until 2026. Just confirming this is correct. So just to be clear, Cork can be used in Canada.
there we go.
Our warranty can only, so we can be used in everywhere but British Columbia and Quebec. Those are the only two. But everywhere else in Canada, all of our payouts have honestly in the last three that we've had have all been Canadian partners. Um, but I'll let you answer from the Yukon side.
That's correct on the insurance side. UKON, the product, UKON's services are not available in Canada and won't be until at the earliest 2026. But Canada is our next market on deck.
Awesome. Well, I want to be respectful for everyone's time. We went a little bit over. Thank you all so much for attending. Andy, thanks so much for chopping it up with me today. It was a
Love
pleasure.
it,
We always
man.
have a good time with you. So if you have
Yeah,
any questions, please feel free to reach out to Andy or myself. This has also been recorded, so we'll also send it out to everybody. But thank you again so much for attending.
thank you guys. Have a great day.